Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and tonight we are talking about the D&D Live announcements this weekend. So before I jump into it, I do want to mention I am also live on TikTok over here. So if you haven't followed me on TikTok, you can head on over there if you feel like it. I post silly little videos here and there, give my opinions on things and stuff like that. So this weekend was D&D Live, and they had some announcements, especially the last hour of it today. I want to say it was the last hour. It was from about 7 till 8 p.m. Eastern, I think, if I remember correctly. But huge announcements, and Twitter's abuzz about it. You know, me and my friends have been talking through text and everything. My wife thought it was pretty cool. So I'm not sure what I think of it yet. I will say this has been an exciting week for me in gaming. A company I love that I did a video on the other day they announced a new partner that they brought on to be the head of their company. So pretty excited about that. And I did a whole 3-hour stream on that. I don't think I'm going to do that with this tonight. This will probably be a lot shorter. So the very first thing, the head of Dungeons and Dragons, Ray Winninger, was wearing an AD&D shirt right off the bat. And he came out and said right off the bat that a new version is coming of Dungeons and Dragons. It's going to be 100% compatible with the current edition. And it's slated for 2024. So in 2024, for the Dungeons and Dragons 50th anniversary, they are going to be coming out with a new revision of the rules. I'm assuming it's a revision. He said a new version. That was his exact words, a new version of D&D. This is something that YouTubers have been, debating for a while now. I've seen people on TikTok talking about, what do you want in a 6e? I will probably weigh in on that in a minute about some of the things I would personally like to see, or maybe even not necessarily in a 6th edition, but maybe where they go with it. A couple of the other huge announcements. Chris Perkins said they are currently working on 2 brand spanking new settings that have never, ever been released by Wizards of the Coast. It doesn't sound like it sounds like they're all conceptual and they're bringing them to life. They're pretty excited about them, which they don't normally announce little settings that they work on in the background. Unless they get pretty far along. So these 2 new settings might come out. Might be a brand new thing for Dungeons and Dragons that we've never seen before. So that was kind of cool. Chris Perkins also said that there is going to be a classic setting in 2022 that they are revisiting. I personally have opinions on what it is because at the very end of the stream, they showed Boo and different, I think it was 9 different gemstones around his head. It was a hydro piece that he just got in a couple days ago for a book coming out in 2022 that they're not going to say what it is yet. I'm assuming that we're talking maybe a spell jammer, since Boo was a space hamster. He was a miniature, gigantic space hamster, which is basically the same thing as a hamster. But I'm assuming it's going to be either Planescape or Spelljammer that they're going to do next year, personally. And the reason I think Spelljammer is because Boo obviously is from space, right? That's the whole idea. They also said next month in October, they are going to be announcing some kind of brand new scary setting that might be coming out next year. Well, they didn't say coming out next year. They just said a brand new scary setting. I don't know what that means. But it sounds like it is one that has not been put out for 5e yet. So I'm assuming it can't be Ravenloft. They're going to be doing more of the shorter adventure anthology books. Because, fans have really liked it, such as Tales from the Yawning Portal, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Candlekeep, Secrets of Candlekeep, I think is what it was. So that's also pretty cool. I personally like those a lot. I like running shorter adventures because long campaigns, I usually don't get those wrapped up. So being able to run shorter ones that are more interesting out of those books is really cool to me. Welcome Legend Lore over on YouTube now. I'm glad to see you found your way over. They talked Well, they talked about a new rules expansion gift set coming out in January. That was the Amazon leak that Nerd Immersion and some other people had reported on. And so that's coming out in January, and it's going to have a brand new book in it, as well as Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and Xanathar's, the Xanathar's Guide. They're going to have a foil set there where all the books are white, which was actually kind of nice looking. But the new book is Canaan presents Monsters of the Multiverse. This book is going to be a compilation of all the monsters they've put out since the original Monster Manual. They also are going to have 30 plus setting agnostic playable races. So that's it. I'm assuming that means not like reprints of Warforged and things that are specific to a setting. So probably not any of the stuff from the Critical Role things either. The other thing too is Jeremy Crawford said that they have rebalanced all of the monsters as well, because they've been paying attention and listening to what people say about all of basically the game's too easy for players. So they've made monsters tougher and more resilient. In fact, resilient was the exact word he used, and rebalanced them. You're going to see changes to the monster stat block. So, for example, they showed you a bard, they showed you a couple other ones, and in there they changed some things that are key about those, like NPCs. They also have tables next to them that sounded more like role-playing flavor, like how you would actually role-play it. For example, the bard had different types of bards, like whether it was a flute or acting or whatever, singing. So they had a table you could roll on to play that up, which I like that. I personally think something they need, especially for newer DMs as well, in that book, that's probably not in there, but should be, is how to tweak monsters to make them a little bit tougher and easier. And I mean, just core basic stuff that you should have in, I think, a book for newbies. And for example, telling people to change the weapons and armor on their humanoid creatures, right? Up it a level, and now their AC goes up by 1 or 2, or give them a different weapon that they can hit harder with. Stuff like that. Simple tweaks can make a huge difference in combat. So over on TikTok, Clean Room Man, I like it. Hey, thank you, Hex AD. I appreciate that. It's been a work in progress for a long time, so I appreciate it. More monsters, please, and races. So it sounds like it's just a compilation of pre-printed from a variety of books into one spot. So very interesting to me. Let's see, what else did they say? New product formats are coming in 2022. Now, this is something that I've kind of complained about for a long time with D&D 5e. If I'm running a module, I want a little bit more read-aloud text. That doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily read it, but I want the read-aloud text so I know what's important to give the players and not. And I think this is really important for newer players. I am not someone who likes to run a lot of modules. When I do, though, I want it to be quick. I don't want to have to prep everything I'm going to write for each room. I don't want to have to memorize the 4 paragraphs for a small 6x6 room. I don't want to memorize that. So those are things that I hope they're changing in there. But they showed some other stuff, obviously new artwork, whatever. I'm not worried about that. But the most interesting thing that they mentioned was the brand new potential 6e or 5.5e or ADND5e, whatever it's going to be called, whatever it is. Everyone's speculating. Because of him saying that it was 100% compatible with the current edition and all those books, it makes people think it's more of like a 5.5e or an advanced version of 5e. And when 5e first came out, one of the things about it that I've talked about countless times, I've talked about it on my channel, I've talked about it in other live streams. The Mike Merles said when 5e first came out, right around the time it first came out, before even all 3 books were released, that it was going to be a modular system that you can stack on the complexity you want. So it sounded like the player's handbook was like basic D&D, or their foundation, and then from that you could add on more specific rules, more feats, more just other things, other systems to make it more complex as you want it. And I wonder if all the work they did to do that originally has just been sitting there and they decided, hey, let's incorporate some of this stuff into this 50th anniversary edition. I wonder if that's what they were kind of implying. I don't know. But yeah, so we'll see. I'm pretty excited though. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure if I'm going to make the full-on jump to a new edition. I like 5e. I think 5e is really good as it is. I know how to run it well. I know how to, challenge my players the way I want to. I'm really comfortable with it as a DM. As a player, I enjoy it. There's still concepts I haven't played, but it's, to me, a little bit too basic. And I would personally like to have more customization options in my characters. When I choose a race, I don't want to just be told, all right, here's the 6 things you get from a race. When I choose a class, I don't want, here's your trajectory because you chose this class. This is what you get. You get an option every couple levels between maybe 2 or 3 things. I want, when I choose, I kind of like that about Pathfinder 2nd Edition with character creation. But I don't think you need the rules bloat that Pathfinder has. And I don't want all the rules. I want to be able to just play it very smooth. 2024, 50th anniversary for D&D. That's when they're going to release this. Next year, it sounds like next year at D&D Live, they're going to be discussing the new edition a little bit more. They'll have some things to announce. They're going to continue to take feedback from the players. They're going to continue to take do surveys. They're going to continue to, or they're going to also do another play test as well. So I'm assuming that's going to get announced next year by the end of the year. But no, you're not getting a new edition until 2024. Between now and then, it looks like you're getting potentially, you're getting a classic setting next year. You're getting shorter adventure anthologies. You're getting the Morden Canaan Presents Monsters of the Multiverse next year, which is going to have 30 plus playable races that are all setting agnostic. So probably not, again, things like Warforged. You're going to get, and all those have been pre-published, I'm assuming, with some changes. So especially stuff that's from early 5e, I'm talking 2014, 15, maybe even 16, maybe even 17 and 18. Those are going to probably see massive changes. The Ranger class is going to have changes because they have more spell slots, I guess, thanks to Tasha's. The Sorcerer as well. So all those things are coming, are going to be done and implemented moving forward. I believe they even might update the player's handbook with the next printing. It was kind of implied, but I don't think they explicitly said the player's handbook is going to be updated with those things. So I don't know about that. So yeah, what does everyone think of this? Are you guys actually excited about a 6th edition? What are some things you hope for in a new 6th edition? By the way, Roll Stats, I saw what you said. D&D is not dead. It's more popular than it's ever been, which is only going to help old school games like Old School Essentials and stuff like that, especially as more people want to try those things. But yeah, give me Ranger Revised as the true Ranger. So was that the one that didn't have spells? The original Unearthed Arcana, where they removed the spells out of it, I kind of liked that one. I didn't think they went as far as they should have, if I remember correctly. Really, the Beastmaster Ranger just needs to be able to also have the action economy of its companion. That's just my opinion. So yeah. But yeah, I'm not necessarily excited about a 6th edition. So I'm more keen on a 5.5e than a 6e. So I agree with you. I actually, if they're doing this, again, I hope it does the things I want, of course, right? I hope it gives me, when I'm creating a character, I hope it gives me choices when I choose a race. I wouldn't be surprised if they did away with the word race and switched to something like ancestries or heritages or something like that. Or species instead. Species might even work better. But I hope when I choose something like a dwarf, I can choose, not choosing like mountain dwarf, hill dwarf, whatever. I hope I can choose like, good with axes, like proficiency with axes or proficiency with hammers. And instead of having a this or that choice, I've got like 4 choices from a pool of things. That's what I want to see. It doesn't have to add any rules to the game. It's literally just character creation stuff. That would make that a lot better for me. I also, while I love advantage disadvantage, I don't want everything to be tied to that, because then it does make certain things feel samey. I also hope they add like weapon properties of some sort. So like the difference, for example, between using a long sword and a battle axe, there is no difference. You know, it's the same damage, so there is no difference. So I would like to actually see something of a difference. Maybe it's only on critical hits or something like that. And when it comes for bounded accuracy, I like bounded accuracy. I kind of want it to be tweaked a touch, so numbers could go higher. Numbers could be as high as like a 30 to 35. Let's see, quite a few things to read. Legend Lore says, honestly, that's why I'm looking into 4E more, because they allow you to build your character more in line with what you want, instead of the same progression for each class. So I would recommend Pathfinder 2nd Edition if you're into that. And I believe Pathfinder 2nd Edition is a much better version of D&D 4E, personally. I've never played 4E, though. It's just what I've read and heard. There's 2, one with spells and one without. Oh, okay. Yeah. About the Ranger. I would also like empowered familiars and wild companions. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Chris Hall, it sounds like it's going to be more 5.5 than 6E. They stress that everything will be backwards compatible. Well, they stressed that, but they haven't even completed it. They're just in a concept phase of this new rule system. So right now, the idea is it's going to be 100% compatible. We'll see. That could drastically change over the course of a year or two, especially with feedback from the community. Tim says, depends if I play it or run it. Sure. Rollstat says, DND6e, every option for any player with all of the benefits and no downside. Your blueprint for 6e is Tasha's... No, it's not. I have Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It is definitely not that. Yay. Sounds like so much fun. I know you don't like that, Bill. Legend Lore says, I think they should draw more on 4E for customization. Yeah, I don't know about that much. Again, I'd have to really dive into 4E and study it to make that assessment for myself. I think a good way to help make the damage for weapons more impactful is to change how armors take them. Yeah, like a damage reduction thing. You could do that. It's not even damage. I don't care about what the damage difference is. I just want to be able to do different things. Like if I'm using a hammer or a maul, I want to be able to break somebody's shield or break somebody's weapon with a choice. That's what I would like to do. So that personally would make it better, in my opinion, to be able to do things like that. Or maybe when you're using a light weapon, you can do an extra attack, a free extra attack when you attack. You know, something like that would be kind of cool. And light weapons would literally just be things like daggers or shurikens or, stuff like that. Thrown little small thrown weapons maybe. But yeah. But I love the idea of damage resistance. However, I don't know if I like that for D&D. And that's just because other systems do it and they do it well, in my opinion. Plate mail is resistant to bludgeoning and slashing, but weak versus piercing or something. You could do something like that. I think stuff like that is better as an optional rule, though. Just like changing to either resistance in general or... So here's another thing I liked about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So if you were resistant to something, there was a number associated with it. So you could be resistant to poison 3. That means 3 points of poison damage don't hurt you. Anything over that will. But if you're susceptible, say it's fire, you might be fire... vulnerable to fire 5. That means if 1 point of fire damage is done to you, they add 5, so it's actually 6. So I actually like that rather than double or dividing it by 2. I actually like that because now you can have something that's extremely resistant to something and something that's only mildly resistant. So I liked that about Pathfinder. I thought that was a good idea to go with. And yeah, I do like armor durability, but again, that's Palladium Books right there, guys. Palladium Books has armor durability. It offers damage reduction. And the other day I was talking about what I wanted to see in that. If you like Palladium Books or have ever liked it in the past, go check that out and you might enjoy that video. It was pretty long, but I talked at length about different things I wanted to see in that system. Even for weapons, you can get new abilities or ways to use it as you level up and use it more often, maybe by tracking crits or something. Yeah, like I'm totally cool with it. I don't want to track a bunch of stuff though. Again, that's an accounting thing. I don't want them to add complexity. but I do want some options with character creation. And I think some slight rules adjustments, again, go with the advanced. Hey, thank you, AJ. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've had super chats for a while, man. But yeah, I would love to see them add just a touch of complexity. Nothing that you have to track, though. As a DM, I'm already tracking enough. I don't want to have to track 7 other things. I don't want to have to track to see if that player's being honest, because every now and then you have players that you kind of have to watch because they sometimes think they've used something or haven't used something enough when really you do know that they've used it. And I watch back my old streams, so I always catch on to those things after the fact, but never in the moment. So, but I have pretty good players, so I don't usually have to deal with that. But there are power gamers out there that you got to be careful of, so I don't want to have to track and babysit. So let's keep the tracking to a minimal. So AJ says, I'm very excited for Morton Canaan's Monsters of the Multiverse in 2022. Possible Planescape stuff. So that's what I was saying. So they showed a picture at the very end of the stream that had Boo, which, if you guys aren't familiar, he is the miniature giant space hamster. Obviously space, which makes me think Spelljammer. It was a Hydro cover made for something coming out next year. And so, again, I think that's what they were referring to. I'm going to end my TikTok stream, but I'm going to stay over here with you guys. So, yeah, I think that, again, I think that's going to be a Spelljammer book, personally. It could be Planescape. Yeah. Tim says 5e doesn't have weapons specialization. Never quite noticed. I mean, not really. So there's feats that are associated with types of weapons. So great weapon. So feats are an optional rule in DND5e, Tim. So you don't have to play with feats. You can play a strip. In fact, the core of the game is intended to be low magic items. In fact, all of the encounters are balanced based on having 0 magic items. So if you try to use any CR based on Xanathar's Guide, it's based on having no magical items. Okay, if you want it to actually fit the feel of what you're going for by the math, and even then, it's still a little bit in the player's favor, in my opinion. But again, that's if you also aren't doing the proper encounters per day. Now, the encounters per day are ridiculous. I'm not going to get into all that, but you do have to do a lot of encounters per day in order to make it so you can challenge players as they level up. But there are feats, like Great Weapon Master allows you to do extra damage with a great weapon. Again, an optional rule that you can choose, and then choose that specific feat. With that, you can take, I think, 5 off of your to hit. So if I rolled a 13 plus 5 or plus 6, we'll say it's plus 6 with my proficiency and stuff. So now we're at a 19. But before I rolled that, I said, hey, I want to use this for the extra damage. So now instead of a 19, it's a 14, and if I hit, I do an extra 10 damage on top of my roll. Again, that to me isn't what I want or what I'm going for. I want something that when you crit with a weapon that you are specialized in, so maybe not everybody gets it unless they're specialized in it. And that would be, so you would take a weapon as a proficiency, but then you could also choose certain weapons that you are specialized in. So it'd be like that extra tier, like you're an expert with that weapon. And I think you should add things they can do, with it. So again, target a character's weapon to break it. Maybe when you hit with something, you can disarm them. You can reduce their speed. If you're using something like a net, which a net already does stuff, but if you're using something like a net, you can force them to be unable to attack, for example. Stuff like that. And maybe it's not associated with crits. Maybe it's associated with a roll that's 3 above AC or something. I don't know. But I would love stuff like that, personally. So I missed the stream. What is the rules compendium? So there's not a rules compendium I know of. There is a rules expansion gift set that's coming out. And that is Tasha's Xanathar's Guide. It's basically the box set that they did, but there's a new book, and it's Morton Canaan Presents Monsters of the Multiverse. You're going to get all of the monsters that are reprinted basically from all the previous books other than the monster manual. So you're going to get every monster they've done except for the monster manual, the original monster manual. You're also going to get 30 plus playable races, all setting agnostic. Now, they didn't say if they were going to be putting new things in there. At least I don't remember hearing that. However, they've made a ton of monster stat updates. So not only now are there going to be charts associated with certain monsters that you can play them differently, they're also going to be more resilient. So all of you guys who say DND5e is superheroes and the players are too difficult, it sounds like they've been hearing that for years and they're wanting to adjust it. So they made all monsters more resilient. I hope that doesn't mean they just added hit points. I'm hoping that means they've tweaked armor classes. They've added, well, he did say they've added abilities. So if you have, these monsters, they have new abilities. So that they've probably added to it. Let's see. Legend Lore says, honestly, I'd look forward to Dark Sun or Points of Light, maybe even Birthright. So I would love Dark Sun, personally. It's a setting I've heard a lot about, that the things I've heard I liked, but none of it was the supposedly sensitive stuff. None of that stuff actually was why I liked it, per se. Legend Lore says, something that isn't traditional fantasy. Yeah, I hear you. AJ says, Minsk and Boo are part of the Forgotten Realms card set. Yep, they are. They are. And obviously they're part of, Baldur's Gate with the statue they have and things like that. So, yep. But yeah, the Magic the Gathering set looks cool. It's really expensive, though. I was looking at the cards, and I'm like, why would I pay this much for some cards I'm never going to play with? I just don't play it enough. I thought about getting my kids into it, though. Roll stats. You're never going to see Dark Sun or Birthright. Both settings are considered too problematic. If you do, they will be revised as to be unrecognizable. Same thing that happened to Dragonlance. I don't know if that... First of all, I agree. You're probably not ever going to see them. But you can still reissue a setting and just not even touch on the problematic stuff. For example, Dark Sun had slavery, right? Just don't even mention anything about the slavery in your new books. I mean, you don't have to. Every setting in the past has had slavery in it, it seems like. Hell, Forgotten Realms, probably had slavery in a previous edition. In fact, they did. You had Drow that did stuff, terrible things. And again, if you just don't touch on it, you're fine. Let people play it how they want at their table, and you're good. You don't have to republish that stuff. AJ Pickett, probably add legendary or lair actions for more categories of monsters. I could see him doing that. I wonder if that's something they're going to carry on to this new... Again, if this is a brand new edition, like that you can just tweak things back to make it compatible, I wonder if that's something they're going to keep for the next edition. I don't know. I personally don't use legendary or lair actions that much. It's a very rare thing I use. I have, but it's just not something I do all the time. Numenera is better than Dark Sun. I'll die on that hill. Numenera, though, is like futuristic. I don't know enough about Dark Sun to say if it is or isn't. But Numenera, to me, is just playing in like a post-apocalyptic Earth where things are so unrecognizable because it's so far in the future, and you play it like you aren't familiar with what these things are. All right? At least that's the only way I played it the one time I played. Legend Lore says, problematic how? Again, I think it's, about things like slavery being mentioned in Dark Sun and stuff like that. Being racist against other races in Dark Sun. Stuff like that is what I'm assuming. But other than that, I don't know about Dark Sun enough to say if that's actually it. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm excited, though. I feel like I should be. I feel like I want to be. But to me, I'm worried that it's just going to be another rule set, a new game. And I don't want to start over if that's the case. You know what I mean? I don't want to get a whole new core book and stuff, because to me, I really like 5e the way it is. 5e Mystara would be great, but highly doubt it. Yeah, Mystara would be cool. That'd be pretty cool. But see, again, if they did that, they're hoping to bring old school fans back, and old school fans aren't riding with 5e, unfortunately. there's too many old school products that they're pretty happy with. I don't mean equivalent to. I just mean it's more fun. Oh, yeah, sure, probably. I had fun playing Numenera. I have no problems with it. I wish I got into it more. The only thing I actually own by Monty Cook is No Thank You Evil for kids over here. So that's all I actually own. But yeah, I mean, and even Numenera, they've redone the system for that. So, Rolstat says, Mystara would be amazing, but again, you're not going to see that setting from Wizards of the Coast. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see it either. I think they realize who their target fan base is, and it's not, 80s fans. It's just not. It's basically fans. Roll Stats, we talked about this. It's newer school fans. It's 3rd edition and newer fans for the most part. That's who Wizards of the Coast views as their target demographic. Tim D says, Goodman Games does pretty well. Yeah, for sure. That's kind of their thing. They license out these variety of old school things. Recently, Temple of Elemental Evil. And that's the path they go, and it keeps them in business. So, I mean, really, if you guys love Goodman Games, hope that, Wizards of the Coast doesn't go and rehash all the old settings. Because, I mean, that just would dip into what Goodman Games has already done and been doing. Even other, who was the other one? Necromancy Games recently did an old D&D setting as well. I think maybe a whole brand new setting is in order. So Legend Lore, they said they're working on 2 brand new settings. They're in development, so that does not mean that they're going to see the light of day. But they never announced these things. So even Chris Perkins said they're always kind of dabbling with things in the background. But they have 2 brand new settings that they've been working on all year long that are in development. That just means they're writing it. They're, past the concept phase. They really are excited about the conceptualization of the setting. They've began writing it. But again, that doesn't mean it's going to see the light of day. And this is something that I know quite a few people have wished they would have done anyway instead of going with Forgotten Realms for 5e. So again, I'm pretty excited to see what they do with that. I hope they see the light of day. At least one of them, right? And that's probably, if I had to guess, they didn't say, but if I had to guess, that's probably coming with the new revision in 2024, if I had to put money on it. Especially with stuff they've recently released, like the new forms of Drow. They need a world to fit their new lore into rather than just being stuffed into an old setting. Sure, I agree with that. With that, though, with Forgotten Realms, for example, Forgotten Realms they run for 5e is not Forgotten Realms they ran for 4e or 3.5. They've continued to progress the timeline every time. So it's a few years in the future. I think like a decade or something in the future every time. But yeah. Rollstat says, I realized a long time ago that Wizards of the Coast doesn't give a shit about me. That's cool. I spend a lot of money on RPGs. A lot. And I'm happy to give it to folks that do. Long live Old School Essentials. I mean, hey, that makes sense. I don't think it means they don't give a shit. I just think that they're obviously, their target demographic is a younger audience. I mean, whatever it is, it's working. They're the largest company by far, and they've done more sales in the last, 5 years than they've done in the lifetime of being a company. So, I think that they're doing something right. And I'm on the fringe of not being their target audience. I'm on the edge of not being their target audience. AJ Pickett, personally, I am happy for 5.5 D&D to switch to Dominaria and Magic the Gathering as the core setting. Yeah, that's something I'm not interested in. I am not interested in their Magic the Gathering settings at all, really. I did get Ravnica, and I did not like that book at all. TSR fan, whoa. What's this ADND5e rumor? So they announced today at D&D Live, the Wizards of the Coast 3-day online convention. It's usually an in-person thing. They announced the head of D&D, Ray Winninger, was wearing an AD&D shirt, and he said a new version of the core rulebook is coming out in 2024 for D&D's 5th anniversary, and said things like it's going to be completely 100% compatible with 5e. Now, Everyone's losing their mind. Everyone thinks this means 6e. Some people are saying, oh, maybe it's a 5.5. I'm just calling it ADND5e right now until I hear more. Because, again, he was wearing an AD&D shirt. Maybe it meant something. I don't know. It's a century. Okay, so it's 100 years each time in Forgotten Realms. That makes way more sense anyway. I just knew they were advancing the timeline each time. But did they ever come out with the book that said drow aren't necessarily like from the Underdark? I know there was talks of them saying that there were other drow. There were drow in like a jungle somewhere. There were drow in the Arctic, and having 3 or 4 different drow cultures. I know that was being talked about for a while, and there was stuff written about it, but I don't know if that actually came out. 5.5e Theater Kids Edition. I mean, yeah, that's what they're trying to play up. It's not as much about the gritty survival stuff like older editions. It's about the story and telling stories at your table and getting lost in character and narration. That's kind of what it seems like they're going for. They're trying to cater to the people who want character development. At least that's when I see the people they bring on their streams, on the official Wizards of the Coast streams. That's most of those people. There's not a lot of, from what I've seen, there's not a lot of people who are, all about combat, murder hobos, and stuff like that. I'm more of a murder hobo. I'm more of a murder hobo. I like combat in my games. I also like to do some of that other stuff though. So that's why I said I think I'm more the fringe of what they're into. Like, so Wild Beyond the Witchlight, their current adventure module that just came out, about like the Fae and the carnival and stuff. One of the things they did with it that they're so proud of, which is fine, it was the fact that you can play the whole campaign without a single combat. Now, I think it's cool that they did that, but at the same time, I like combat. So if someone was like, yeah, we're going to play this because there's no combat necessary, I probably would not want to play in that campaign. I'd probably say, all right, thanks. I'll just sit this one out. You know what I mean? Because I like combat. I like making characters that are good in combat. I don't want to play up my love interests that much. I don't want to get into all that stuff too much. I really like the combat aspect of the games, personally. That was Unearthed Arcana. So the thing I read was not an Unearthed Arcana, though. It was not an Unearthed Arcana article. It was an announcement for some type of book that I don't recall seeing come out. Maybe it's in Tasha's. I haven't read Tasha's cover to cover. But yeah, maybe it's one of these settings. Who knows? Biggest weapon is a pupil stick. Oh, roll stats, Bill. I love your channel. Wish you were more active with the old school awesomeness. So Bill is 100% active with old school awesomeness. He's not active with his channel. I've been telling him for a while he needs to get back to doing it. He needs to do old school essentials videos. That's what he needs to do. And he needs to review Goodman Games the throwback modules and stuff. That's what I want to see from Bill. Yeah, the drow are from the Illithiri Dark Elves. They were at war with other elves and stuff happened, but the Dark Elves were already split into different religions and cultures. Gotcha. The drow are just one culture. There have always been many more. Always. Gotcha. That's a bit CR for me. What do you mean, like Critical Role? So I haven't really watched a ton of Critical Role. In fact, I've only rewatched the original episode like 3 times, and I think episode 2, back when they didn't have good production value, I watched that one a couple times, but none of it stuck. And someone told me I need to just jump to the next season where they had better production values. So maybe I should do that and check it out and give it a shot. By the way, guys, if this is your first time, would love it if you'd hit subscribe and give us a like. But yeah, like I'm cool with a new edition, but I'm not guaranteeing that I'm going to jump on that train. I like 5e for running games. Again, there's things I'd tweak. I'm hopeful that they'll make the changes I'd like to see. I am not optimistic about it. I'm actually, I think, more excited about a potential Palladium Books new edition in the next couple years than I am of a DND6e potentially. Options for non-combat solutions are good. Enforcing non-combat is pure poison. Yeah, they didn't enforce it. Like, you can play it how you want. It just sounds like they probably put in options like things that might sway somebody to not attack you. I would assume. I haven't read it yet. My game store, my local one in town, doesn't have it yet, and I want to get the special cover, so I'm not running out there and just buying it first thing. But last time I was waiting for a special edition book, they never got it, and that was the Candlekeep Mysteries or whatever. I ended up having to order it online and spent like $30 over price because no local game store had it anymore. So I'm probably going to go out in the next day or two and see if I can find the special edition cover at book price. Savage Phase World, take my money. Is that like a Savage Rifts deal? I don't want Savage Rifts. I have Savage Rifts. I'm not into Savage Worlds that much. But is that what you're talking about with Savage Phase World? Did my text reply in here? So your text shows up as message retracted. I think you had said okay. Rollstat says, so TSR fan, you may actually be witnessing the rebirth of my channel. It's time to push, promote, and evangelize old school alternatives. D&D is dead, long live the OSR. Do it, Bill. I've been telling you to do that for over a year. You've been saying this for over a year. Back when you got upset about the orc discussion, I told you should do it because I knew you were upset. I didn't think it was that big a deal. I don't mind the changes they've made. Doesn't matter. Doesn't change anything. It just changes what they're going to do moving forward. Which doesn't ruin any of my fun, so I don't care. If they get rid of the OP rest mechanic, award XP for gold, and focus on dungeon and overland mechanics, I would be interested in 5.5 or 6e. But if not, and it's just more unnecessary bloat, then I'm not. Yeah, I don't think you're going to get what you want. I can't imagine they'll use XP for gold. I don't imagine them doing that ever again. I do think they need exploration mechanics better, like more focused on. I do think dungeon mechanics and stuff would also be much appreciated. I hope they give us that. I don't think they will. I feel like I don't feel like they're putting a lot of focus on dungeon crawls, even though their modules have a shit ton of them. You know? But yeah, I get it. And honestly, like, so say they did those things, though, in your mind, could they do it better than any OSR product? Like, anything that you're currently used to in the past? I don't think they're going to be able to appease you guys, you know, from the old school. I don't have that faith in them. I don't think there's enough people who work for them who are into the old school. I know Mike Merles was. Mike Merles loves old school games. Beyond him, I don't know who else did, and I think he's working with the video game side of things now. Because I don't think he's actually associated with the pen and paper side like he used to be. But again, I don't know. AJ says, well, I just want more Phase World. I'll take Savage if I have to. I think you might get it eventually. I think they're trying to go and get all of the Rifts setting books that are considered the better Rift setting books and Savage them. I think that's what they're trying to do. So they just did Atlantis. I don't know what's next on the horizon. I know, Sean is now one of the partners over at Palladium. Again, I'm really excited to see what happens at Palladium. That's where I'm at. And who knows, this channel might go back to being more of a Palladium channel, depending on what they do. It would not take much for me to dive in headfirst with Palladium again. I think I'm pretty easy to please. But D&D, this, if it's a new edition, if it's 6th edition that they're doing, this could sink them, in my opinion. Not sink them like, oh, they're going out of business, but like, it could alienate a lot of fans who love that system that are new school gamers. And the old school gamers aren't coming back, obviously, which even if they did, I don't think there's enough to make up the difference. I mean, they could segment their fan base in half of what they currently have, which is massive, which we're talking probably millions of dollars, you know? So I don't know. I think at first, you would see the boom of people rebuying books. But if it's not well received, oof, it leaves an opening in the market. Preach it, brother. Legend Lore says D&D is a combat system until they add new systems for RP. Besides just a persuasion check, they won't be able to break it out. And what exactly is old school? Old school is like anything pre-3rd edition D&D. So think AD&D, think basic, expert, you know, rule cyclopedia. Those are old school. There's a ton of retro clones out there now if you're interested. Sword and Sorcery by I'm drawing a blank. Someone in the chat will help me. But you got all sorts of old school games. Atlantis, Trax, Ninja, Japan. You know what? I don't know if they would do Japan. If they did, well, they probably would for Savage Rifts. I'd be interested in seeing that. Well, I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't buy it. I'm not interested in buying Savage Worlds settings, so I wouldn't. TSR says they wouldn't need to. Stick with what works. If they're just using the old rules verbatim, it's useless because you can just use old rules with the new edition and make it work. So I don't think that matters. Again, if a rule's not in a system that I want to use or need to use, I make up rules all the time for certain things. We did downtime the other day. I told my players not to worry about the rules. They wanted to use the 5e rules. I was just going to wing stuff based on other things I've read over the years and let them do cool shit in their downtime. But they wanted to use the rules. So I don't think I had to use any of my own personal things. But I would do the same thing for dungeons if I wanted to, or the morale mechanic with monsters, or, you know, like there's nothing stopping you. I have a yes or no die that I use all the time for things. All the time. I also have, you know, weather dice. I have CR dice. I have all sorts of things like that. Trap dice, complication dice. Old school D&D focuses on player agency, not the numbers on your character sheet. I don't agree. Again, I've had this talk with Roll Stats. The problem with that is you have minimum stat requirements for things. So the numbers on your sheet matter a lot if you want to play something. So you don't have that agency to just play what you want if you don't roll the stats for it. Old school is rulings over rules, survival-based, not superhero-based, challenging. I agree it's survival-based. I definitely agree with that. It is challenging, and it is grimdark as well. I agree. Old school gamers will be like, oh, ho-ho, children, welcome to the new edition pain. That's true. They'll be like, come here, children. Come under my wing. Let me help you. Here, come try Old School Essentials. Or Castles and Crusades, or basic fantasy, or, you know, and any one of the plenty of old schoolers. I don't understand what that means. Like, what do you mean by player agency? Player agent, I'll let them explain it in the chat, but I'll keep reading. Like making decisions instead of rolling. Peter says exactly, not everything outlined massively with specific rules. Player agency means you define your character, not the rules and the mechanics. Yeah. Look, if you have an old resource that is really good, strip the rules, set out of it, and sell it as edition agnostic. Exactly. 100%. And again, I love doing stuff like that personally. Get it into the new player space. Honestly, I think you could definitely incorporate those old school rules and market it for new players and just don't call it an old school game. And you could probably suck in a lot of them as a simpler fantasy game. But don't you? What's up with the D20? Are you forced to give credit to D&D if you use D20 as the main resolution die? Like, do you have to follow that? Because I've had this discussion with like 2 people in the last week who said you have to use the OGL if you use a D20 as your conflict resolution dice. So it's about dying more. Not necessarily, but it is more lethal. Leveling up is a lot longer when you level up. It's old school games. Old school games were you rolled for your hit points. There was no average. It was not about, hey, here's like an easy mode of survival or whatever. So yes, you go through a lot more characters. OSR, think Pippin, not Aragorn in terms of character. Hell, even Aragorn still is not like a superhero. I mean, I guess he did do some shit. Never mind. Legolas is the one I would probably refer to instead. Pippin, not Legolas. Also, I want to say I'm not trying to be a smartass. I legit don't understand. No, you're fine, man. Look, my channel, we are open to discussing a variety of things. Me and Roll Stats, I love him to death. We've debated, old school games. I have fun playing them. Don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed, he's run Rules Beck Me on the channel, the old Rules Cyclopedia. My very first D&D was Advanced D&D. I played that for about 3 years before I tried Pathfinder. But I never played any other D&D until AD&D, and then I played Pathfinder, and then I jumped into 5e. And around the time I got into 5e, I started trying a whole bunch of other games. Because numbers are still important in each game. Yes, they are. And your die rolls are going to be far more important in an old school game, I feel like. Your abilities in new school games can cover up for bad die rolls in a lot of cases. There's 36 levels for a reason. Over death is a DM issue. Maybe. So a lot of old school DMs I've played with fudged dice rolls too. And I hate that. Absolutely hate that. I'd rather just know where the dice fall. I'd rather just die than know that my DM's fudging dice rolls, personally. It's not necessarily about dying more, but it usually is. It's more about not being shackled to mechanics and the illusion of choice. Legend Lore says, I'd like to try an old school game because I think that's the only way I'm going to actually get it. I mean, there's tons of them. Pick up AD&D. Pick up Rule Cyclopedia is like $30. I don't know if I can get this out. All right. This book right here. You're talking about like $30, I think, over on Drive-Thru RPG. You can get it. It's basically the old school rules. You can also get Basic Fantasy for like $10, I think, over on Amazon if you're interested in that. And you can get a ton of like things for that. That one's not meant to make a profit at all. I think, is it Basic Fantasy or Castles and Crusades? Or you can also get the PDFs for free because, again, they're not trying to sell it. So you can get all the games, read up on the rules if you want to. Basically, you're going to roll 3d6 down the line for your attributes. Where you roll them, they stay. And based on that, you then have to pick what class you're playing. There's no races in the oldest games. It's like dwarf as a class, elf as a class, even gnome, I think, is a class in some of them. So that's like the gist of it. If you're playing a fighter, you can flavor it as a human or, whatever race you want, but there is no actual race choice. I've looked into the Black Hack and OSE before, so okay. 1 page of rules and I'm good to go. Yeah, I mean, you don't need rules. All you need is a D20. Like, the very first time I played D&D with my daughter, I just used a D20 and told her there were 3 things she could do in combat. Other than that, we'd just let the D20 decide if she was successful in whatever she was trying or not. That's it. That's like a paragraph of rules. I get it. It's more about dice rolls than relying on abilities or mechanics. Yeah, it's let the dice fall and it's chance more than anything. TSR fan says, that's why I like you, Juice. You've got the soul of a grognard. Yeah, I mean, I think I do a little bit. I love it when my character dies. I love killing characters, too, as a DM. I really do. I don't go out of my way to do it, but I do kind of get some satisfaction a little bit when their characters die. Especially if it's a cool death. Tim D says, those guys suck. It's not the game. Legend Lore, to mitigate your failure. Yeah, kind of. And then again, you can role play however you want with it. I mean, you don't have different types of attacks you do. You don't have the spells are very minimal in old school games. Yeah. But even like monsters don't really have a bunch of abilities. It's left up to DMs to do what they want, kind of. As IDM, I do all public dice rolls. So much fun. I've thought about it. I mean, I don't care. Most of my games are online now. I don't care if my players see my rolls. I've had a player sit like right next to me where they could see my dice tower, and I'd be like, "Hey, yeah, tell them what I got." Like, if it was a good roll. Chris Hall says part of old school is about genre. For instance, Conan, Hyperborea doesn't have elves or dwarves, let alone Dragonborn. It's lower magic. Yep. Basic Fantasy is free PDFs. There you go. Go check out Basic Fantasy, and there you go. You've got the rules for an old school game. Yep, that was what I referred to when I said the end of the edition is signaled by a rules compendium. Gotcha. That book was the end of Basic D&D. Basic Fantasy has race choice. Okay. Yeah, I haven't played Basic Fantasy, so I don't know. Alex says 5 Torches Deep is a cool R version of 5e. I've never heard of that one. Oh, OSR version of 5e. Gotcha. Pidar says, and roll stats, when are we going to find out the fate of LBJ and Co? Literally, the introduction of D&D rules says they are guidelines. AD&D was the competition rules, so they were hard and fast. Roll stats says, so according to Wikipedia, take the source into account, but anyway, the D20 system is trademarked. Gotcha. So you cannot have a single D20 resolution mechanic without it possibly being a violation of trademark law. Interesting. Legend Lore says, I honestly want to have that danger of a character dying. I've never had it, though I'm the forever DM for my group. Well, it's hard to have it if you're the one DMing games. So I've had it. When we played our Rule Cyclopedia game, our Beckme game, my character had the fear of dying against like 3 wolves. I had that fear. But, that's in old school games, that's just it. You have that fear of dying. You do think more about survival. And so I'll be honest, I find myself when I play old school games thinking more about that, I think, than developing my character. I think more about, oh crap, I got to do like advantageous things and I have to, again, it's role play still. It's just different. It's a whole different feel. And it's fun still, so I definitely recommend it. Roll Stat says, unlike the OGL, the D20 STL is revocable and is controlled by Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast has the ability to alter the D20 system trademark license at will. Interesting. Very interesting. TSR fan, as an old DM from the 80s, I don't like killing characters, but if they do something stupid or reckless, then... The only issue with that is the something stupid. I've had a DM thought I was doing something stupid before that I didn't think was stupid. Even in discussion after the fact with that person and other people, I still didn't think it was stupid and other people didn't think it was stupid. The problem with that ruling of something stupid or reckless is that it's only up to the DM's discretion and not the group's and not anything like that. And for example, jumping off a horse to attack an orc in heavy armor could have done enough damage to kill me. I didn't think that was a good assessment. I think I should have been able to do it because it was cool. I also slid on my shield down a snowy slope, and because they thought that was stupid, I also took enough damage that could have killed me. It was not enough to do it, but it was the dice type would have killed me if it was higher than my hit points. So again, I am not. That's one thing I don't like necessarily. Just that saying of doing something stupid. I agree with it, but I think it's important to understand where the player is coming from as well. And if there's a question of if something is stupid, getting clarification is good. So I will say that. I do play reckless sometimes, though. Victor says, hello all, I escaped early from work. Welcome, Victor. Glad to have you. Surviving was the hardest part. Yeah, old school games are hard. They're meant to be hard. They're not meant to be easy for anybody. Tim D says that's a DM issue. I completely agree. 100%. 100%. I don't disagree. And I see people do the same thing in 5e. It's not a system issue or anything. It's literally just how people do it. TSR fan says, by stupid, I mean taking on more than you can conceivably handle. If you die from doing cool shit, then that's different. Yeah, no, I agree. I am the person that would shoot and ask questions later, though. You can watch our Beck Me game from a while back, and you'll see that. I got our party into a lot of trouble. But that's what I like to do. That's how I like to play. Legend Lore says, all right, got to go hit the hay, but thanks for the discussion, guys. Hey, anytime. Hope to see you back soon. Let us know how your trip into old school goes as well. If you have any questions, you can ask on our Discord, and I'll happily post things and links to old school games that you should try if you're interested. We have a couple people, younger people who like some of the old school games over there as well. Peter says, I enjoy playing 5e, but I do find it overpowered. It can be, for sure. I mean, by the way it is and how people think they're supposed to run it, it is. Most people don't run it properly. And even the ones that do still think it's overpowered sometimes. So, AJ Pickett says, I'm out. Thanks, Juice. Power on, brother. Hey, thank you, man. It's good to see you. It's been a while since I've seen you in a chat. So, hopefully I see you again soon. Victor says, I have endangered some of PC based on the personnel of them. Lots of times people ask me why my PC. Oh, wait. I have endangered some of my player characters based on the personnel of them. You mean like personality of them? Lots of times people ask me why my player character, it is his or her view of life. Gotcha. So yeah, I'm like that. The way I play my characters, I definitely play on the edge. I like to push the pace of a game. I like to keep it advancing. I don't like, lags in play. I definitely push the pace. And one of the things I do because of that is I shoot first, ask questions later. O'Neill says, if my last night's game was old school, I wouldn't have fought with a bunch of enemies by myself, even at 14th level. Since it was 5e, it was a walk in the park. What were you fighting? I dare you to bring your 14th level character to one of my games. It won't be a walk in the park, I'll tell you that. Especially if I have a bunch of enemies. Unless I threw something stupid like goblins at you. But I'll challenge your 14th level party if that's what you're looking for in 5e. Without doing anything super crazy with the rules or monsters. Nathan says, I do feel like they took away that fear factor of dying from the older editions. You do grow attached after X amount of time of playing a certain character. So the groups I played AD&D with always had huge attachment issues to their characters and got so upset when they died. And I understand that's a group issue, not a system issue necessarily. Again, I like playing old school games. I also like the new school games. I do prefer newer school games because to me, it does inspire more roleplay for me. Combat's more interesting to me in new games rather than old games. I do feel like they took away, if you read that. Victor says, sorry, just rush typing dinner and dogs deal with. No problem, dude. I get it. Nathan says, specifically starting with 4E. O'Neill says, I had good rules last night. Rostat says, goblins aren't stupid. I love goblins. I like kobolds, Bill. If I had to choose, I would run with kobolds. Or quicklings, other little creatures. Goblins are my least favorite. Peter says, roll stats in an upcoming Beck Me campaign. I am planning on running for my 5e mates. I'd like to apologize in advance for basically plagiarizing your explanation of the system you gave to Juice and company. Dude, why would you be sorry? It was pretty good. They might need it. So definitely plagiarize it. Unless Bill's charge him royalties for that discussion. Nathan says, I like rolling characters, so that was never a huge issue for me. Yeah, me either. I don't have a problem with my characters dying. The only time I've had issues with my characters dying is when I don't agree with the ruling. That's the only time I've had an issue with it. Or if, for example, the scene using Theater of the Mind was not painted the way I thought and not getting clarification of it. Or being told that something was different after the fact when nobody at the table thought it was different, and the DM tried to say that it was different after the fact. That sucks. Because then you're like, well, if it was that way, I wouldn't have done this, you know? And really, it's just the DM just trying to explain why they killed you. I've had adversarial DMs before. It's not fun. Tim says, the model of a campaign has been kind of revamped. Now it seems to indicate one big book that goes for 15 levels. Yeah, that's how it was, but they announced tonight that they're going to be doing the shorter adventure anthologies like the Tales from the Yawning Portal, the Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and the Candlekeep Mysteries book. And again, you have to remember, in the 3.5 days, when little shorter adventures and stuff came out, and even older ones, people shit all over those companies saying, oh, it's a money grab. Oh, you're releasing another one really soon. It's a money grab. That's unfortunate that, again, these are businesses. They should be trying to make money. So the whole money grab thing is ridiculous to me. But yeah. And I mean, with DM's Guild, there's so many short adventures out there if you want short adventures. And read the reviews before you buy them. No worries at all, Peter. And as long as you let me do a guest appearance as an NPC or big bad evil guy. Oh, there you go. There you go. Game Master Toolbox. I like the choker from 3rd edition. Yeah, those are interesting. I don't like the miniatures for them, though. They look stupid. But I like the monster. Don't they have like a crazy reach and stuff? O'Neill Flynn, Bill the Goblin. There you go. You can play a goblin. Lady Leaf Underhill. We still think you just want to kill us. It's because he does. Duh. It's old school. Victor says, I have made mistakes as DM that cause a PC death. We talk it out to correct the mistake. I'm not even saying you have to go back and correct it. It just, when a DM paints a picture of what's happening, you do something based on what's painted, and then you die, and you're like, what? How? That's not possible. And they're like, well, this, and then they like say a bunch of other stuff that was not the case, or at least not even close to how they described it before. And you're like, oh, well, I wouldn't have done that if I knew such and such. You know what I mean? No big deal. I don't remember the details. I just remember being upset. I got over it pretty quick. I made a better character. I always make a better character. TSR fan, nobody deserves to be the Bargle. I lost my first love to him. Lady Leaf says, maybe I should follow Steven's example and not name my character till level 3. Yeah, don't worry about the description of what they look like or their backstory until they make it to at least level 3. There's the trick. And don't make a wizard. Because, you know, small hit point pool with minus to constitution. Yikes. Everyone hates Bargle for that. Also, Alina was mine, not yours. Lady Leaf is one of the players in the campaign. Yeah, I picked that up. That's cool. That's awesome. You guys will have to make that game happen. When do you guys normally play, Peter? Boom, boom. Roll Stats has a rule that he doesn't run games on weeknights anymore, so that's why we don't do the Beck Me game. One day that might change. We might move it to like a Saturday at some point. Although currently I have campaigns every Saturday. Bill, weren't we talking about possibly bringing back the Beck Me game for Fridays? I think we had discussed it. Is that something that's still a possibility? Because I was still planning on kicking that table over and shooting the orc with my bow in that room. Wizard is my fave in 5e. Well, it won't be your fave in old school. It might be. I don't know. What is it you like about Wizards in 5e, Lady Leaf? I'd be curious about that. I recommend the sleep spell. Oh, TSR fan about playing on Fridays. Wizards are still fun in my opinion. I think all of it can be fun. I'm not a fan of Wizards in the newer games though either, personally. Peter says, so in a recent 5e session, we found ourselves in a tough spot, and my turtle character asked the party if anyone had a 10-foot pole, and the rest of the party asked why the hell anyone would have one. I personally think people carrying around a 10-foot pole in dungeons and caverns is kind of stupid. Only because it's not, I don't think it's realistic to carry a 10-foot pole everywhere. Especially in small little caverns and stuff. Yeah, sorry, I just can't do weeknights anymore, but I would love to bring back the Keep on the Borderlands campaign on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night. Okay, then we should talk about like a Friday game. Like maybe a once a month game. I don't know. We'd have to check Draven's schedule. But worst case scenario, we can bring in new people. So thoughts on Goodman Games Into the Borderlands and Isle of Dread books. So we were playing Keep on the Borderlands. I believe the Goodman Games reissue of the old school part of it. And I'm fine with it. I like it. I think them doing the old school games is great, personally. I look forward to seeing them do more. I don't own any. I want to buy all those old school modules that are redone, adapted for 5e. I do want those. O'Neill says, I am not a fan of Vancium magic system, really. So I agree with you, actually. For the longest time, so I come from Palladium where you have magic points, like a mana, and you spend it to cast spells. And that was one of the first things about D&D I hated, and I've come around to it, and I get it, and it's fine. I still think magic points are far easier and make more sense, really. But yeah, some people like Vancium magic. It's not going away. It's always going to be there. One thing I want to say about spells and magic in future editions, if they ever do this, like they're saying they will in 2024, I hope that the spell levels align with your level. So if you level up to 20, you don't get access to 9th level spells. You get access to 20th level spells. Just space out some of those spells between the 2 levels, or 3 levels, or whatever. Retune the spells so that it coincides with your spellcaster level as well. So you don't have 2 different level pools. Like, oh, here's my spell casting level, and here's my wizard's level. Like, no. Hate that. What if it's an extendable 10-foot pole? Well, there you go. That makes more sense. I'm fine with that. That makes sense to me. Wizards got the ritual thing going. Don't know, lots of spells. Yeah, Lady Leaf, you don't get lots of spells in old school games. It's very minimal. Roll Stats totally got me hooked on the Goodman Games books. They're great. They are good. It's a good company. Can't recommend them enough, especially if you are looking to add an old school feel to your 5e game. Yeah, I would love to run them in 5e. I honestly would totally run Keep on the Borderlands in DND5e or any of those old ones. I think it'd be an interesting campaign. May have bought a collapsible 10-foot pole along with all the other stuff. Not sure. There you go. Buy them for my daughter. She does weekly 5e. I got the originals myself. The originals are expensive. So someone was complaining the other day that Temple of Elemental Evil is $100 from Goodman Games. It's 2 thick books in a slipcase. And has all the original stuff, but I've also adapted it to 5e and all that other good stuff. If you buy an old school Temple of Elemental Evil, you're talking about, what, 80, 90 bucks? And then you have to go in and, if you're doing it for 5e, you now have to convert it. Like, $100 is a good price for that thick, meaty, slipcase with 2 books. Peter says, nearly crashed my car listening to that campaign when LBJ decided to test that ring of protection with the hammer. When I smashed, was it me? I think oh no, he smashed it. Was it my hand? Or was it his hand? I remember someone's hand getting smashed. Read the Dying Earth novels. Advancing Magic will make much more sense. Gotcha. Lady Leaf says, yes, spell level and character level, same number, would be much better. Yeah, that's the one thing I think that is long overdue. That should have been done a couple editions ago, in my opinion. Rollstat says, I really miss that game. We're going to figure it out and revive it. I agree. We got to bring it back. I would love to play it. It should be that way. It only makes more sense. Yeah, I agree. And again, you can take half the first level spells and split them up into the second level. You can take the current second level spells and split them between third and fourth level. You can take, and just scale it up like that. It would not be hard. It would not change anything. It's just going to change the wording of leveling up and choosing your spells. Victor says, $100 sounds like a very fair price to my ears. Yeah, it's amazing for what you get. That was almost the first book from Goodman Games I bought. I haven't bought anything from them before, though. But that was almost the first book I bought. Because I thought that set looked cool. Castle Amber is one that I think looks interesting. Isle of Dread, which I have from the D&D Next playtest, I think. Keep on the Borderlands, which technically I think I have from the D&D Next playtest. So I've almost bought all those, though, as well. Fellow Canadian D&D player, cheers. There you go. I'm in Michigan. Does that count? I'm kind of close to Canada. Tim says, right, Goodman is good because they do the conversion. Plus you get a copy of the original, and they're a great price. Yeah, exactly. And they're high-quality books. They're stitched and bound well, and all of that. One of my local game stores actually carries some of those books. My plan in my game is that casters aren't going to know all the spells that will be available to them. They will discover and find new magic. Keep the mystery and magic. So that was something also about old games. Again, if you wanted to try and recreate realism, a lot of people liked the idea that you had to find someone to train you to level up. And that was something I didn't like about old school games, to be honest. Your comment just made me think of that. I think for some things it makes sense, but yeah. Lady Leaf Underhill says, is DM in-game? Peter asked for a poll. She just got a lot of loot in a game with different DM and bought a ton of stuff. Oh, so you guys are switching DMs in a game? O'Neill Flynn says, Rule Cyclopedia is on my wish list. Well, you can go buy it right now on Amazon. Be careful. People have tried to resell this exact book on Facebook Marketplace for $100. You can go buy it $30 over on Drive-Thru RPG, print on demand. People will try to rob you if you let them. Be careful. Tim says Isle of Dread was the first look at Mystara. Ran that baby ragged. There you go. My players went nuts at sea. There you see, that's cool. I like that. So one thing I'm going to say right off the bat, and I believe some of you will agree with me. Game systems are overrated. You will have more fun if you have a good group that complements your play style rather than having a game system that suits your play style. I firmly believe you will have more fun with a good group. The original doesn't have the border. Exactly, Tim. It's like this whole thing is the whole cover. Oh no, I knocked a bunch of stuff over. But yeah. Yup. So yeah, it's going to be crazy. I've slowed down on buying 5e books. I haven't bought all the new books. I'm behind on those, which is fine by me, to be honest. I like them. I want to own them. I am kind of a collector, but I just haven't kept up with buying them. So I am hoping to get The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, The Book of Dragons looks cool. I'm kind of interested in that one. Especially the Elder Brain Dragon. That looks interesting. Not the art, but the sound of it sounds cool. Sounds like its breath weapon is basically like the spores that eat your brain. So that's kind of cool. There's also Strixhaven's, but that's technically Magic the Gathering, I believe. But I'm kind of interested in that one too. So I don't know. And then this Morden Canaan's book I'll probably buy because I like having consolidated monster manuals. Roll Stat says, could not agree more, 100%. It's never about the system. It's always about the group. Yeah, I agree. And while a system can make it less fun, it can also make it a little more fun. Again, the group is such a big chunk of what makes it fun. Peter says, I nearly sold my rule cyclopedia when I found it clearing out my family home after my dad's passing. Never thought I'd actually find a chance to use it. Didn't realize D&D was back. Oh my gosh. D&D is huge right now. Game Master Toolbox, they were very careful about not saying edition. Correct. They said new version. A new version. That's 100% compatible with 5e. With the current version. Tim says, definitely the people you play with. You'll have time to buy at the beginning of a new edition. Yes. Peter says, one lad, Mr. Welch, has produced a 5e adaptation of Mystara setting available somewhere online. Yeah, there's a whole community still based around Mystara. So, and technically there's stuff published on DM's Guild about Mystara as well. You can get anything right now for 5e. Anything. But again, it's got tens of millions of fans. Like, no other company's ever seen this kind of success. I've had regrets of getting rid of stuff. So I have too. I don't have my Palladium Fantasy stuff. Like, I have some of it. I wish I had all of it. Because I was only... From right now, there would only be 3 books I would need to have all the Palladium Fantasy books. Victor says, take care all. I have to go do real life stuff. Oh, take it easy, man. It was awesome having you. Meeting ended after 40-minute idle. Oh, wow. Well, Stat says, okay, so Peter, thank you so much for saying that. I love Mr. Welch, and I sing his praises often. I'm glad someone else is finally mentioning him. Is he the one that runs the Mystara website? I'm not sure who Mr. Welch is. Thanks for stopping by, Victor. We'll be in talk. We'll talk. We'll be in contact. We have to play a game soon again, too. I think you said you'd run Heroes Unlimited for me. So I still got to find some players for that. Nathan says, same here. All of my dad's AD&D books and campaigns. That's cool. I see. Yeah, that's awesome. Tim says, I'd actually like to get the Buck Rogers going, but working on Cthulhu right now. Cthulhu's been a lot of fun. So, Bill, are you getting the hang of Octung Cthulhu? I feel like I'm starting to get it. I like it. I think I still liked Pulp Cthulhu a bit more. But Octung Cthulhu is fine. The only part I think I don't like is the damage dice. Go follow him on YouTube. I probably already do. I follow so many people on YouTube, though. It's just Mr. Welch. If he has any videos about wokeness, though, I'm not following him. I hate when people talk about stuff like that. Like anti-woke crowd drives me bonkers. Okay, gotcha. Welcome to Mystara, the Five Shires. Yeah, there's a lot of Mystara stuff on here. All right, I'll follow him. I'm reading his description and about me real quick. Okay, cool. Yep. Good to go. I was not following him before, but now I am. So we'll see what I think of his channel. I'm not going to watch it right now. Only book I got from Palladium is TMNT. It's a good one. It's a good one. The After the Bomb books are a little bit more updated than that. So the TMNT book is like 30 years old. It's pre-TMNT cartoons. It's like, so they got the license after the second comic book came out. So that's how old school Palladium's TMNT is. It's before, you know, Cowabunga Dude and surfing and skateboarding, really. It's the more adult Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Favorite D&D location, Forgotten Realms, Ravenloft, Mystara. You know, I'm fine with... I know the most about Forgotten Realms, and just because of 5e. I've played in Mystara a bit, but I don't feel like I know the setting. I remember like the Duchy of Karamikos and stuff like that, but none of the stuff stuck. No, our games were never really about the setting. It was more about just what we were doing inside of it. At Roll Stats, I'd love to direct my players to Mr. Welch's videos on Mystara to show why I love the setting so much, but too many spoilers. His deep dives into Mystara lore is unreal. Tim D says, needed to change it up. So, Peter, are your players unable to metagame? Like, do you worry they're going to metagame, or do you worry it's going to ruin some surprises? Because what is it about Mystara lore that you're worried about them seeing? Like, you don't have to be specific. I don't mind if my players see stuff, personally, so that's all. Nathan says, I've got a few Palladium books, including Heroes Unlimited. Yeah, Heroes Unlimited was my first RPG. My first one that I really got into. Roll Stats, nope. I'm as lost as I was on day one. Honestly, I'd really prefer Pulp Cthulhu, but that's probably just me. No, I would prefer it. I had said that, I think, the first time we played Octung. Nobody else backed me, though, when we talked about it. But I think Peter wanted to try it. I'm cool with trying it because I've got other Modiphius games I want to dive into more. So, like, I really want to play the Fallout, the new Fallout RPG. I heard the one they did a few years back wasn't as good. And then I have Star Trek, so I would love to try that too. But that's basically the same stuff as Octung Cthulhu. I haven't seen really much difference between the rules. No, he's not the anti-woke element. If anything, he's the opposite. He rejigged all Atragan clans to make it better and more respectful towards native cultures. Okay. Yeah, there's a few YouTubers I had to just unfollow because they weren't even making videos about RPG content. They were complaining about like Gen Con woke culture, so I had to unfollow them. Like, that just drives me nuts. I come on here to escape politics and to enjoy RPGs. Like, that's it. Like, I'm not going to be mad about a company changing stuff in their setting and stuff, no matter which direction they go, really. Unless it's blatantly insensitive, then yeah. But After the Bomb came out in 1986. Was there a new one? So the After the Bomb books, they have removed the Turtles references because they lost the IP at some point. I don't remember when they lost it. But the After the Bomb books, the newer ones, I think are more based on a revised rule set. So in 97, Heroes Unlimited came out with revised rules, and Rift's Ultimate Edition came out a couple years after that, which revised and changed some of the rules again for the Palladium system. And I believe somewhere around there is also when After the Bomb had an update. Don't quote me on that. I don't own After the Bomb. I heard that they're making a new D&D cartoon. I have no idea. That is not something I heard. At all. I mean, I know Critical Role has something coming out, and sometimes people think the two are the same thing, but Critical Role and D&D are not the same. And I don't know when that's coming out. That was kickstarted well over a year ago at this point. Like, what, 2 years ago? Which, animated shows can take some time, so. But I don't think that's out yet. Be interesting to check out his stuff. It's hollow. O'Neill says, funny thing is, after all these years, I've only played in Ravenloft. No other settings. Rest was homebrewed. Really? See, I have never played in Ravenloft, and I have no interest in playing in Ravenloft. Oh no! An error occurred. Please try again. Did I lose my connection? What is going on here? That's weird. It says I'm still live, but it says an error occurred. Please try again later. Playback something, something, something. Can you guys still see and hear me? That's a weird error. I've never had this before. Okay, good, good, good. Yeah, that's a weird error. I don't know what's going on. I had issues earlier with another stream. Okay, good, good, good. Whew. Yeah, I've never had that happen. So, yeah, Ravenloft is not something I've had a ton of interest in. The Curse of Strahd was the first book from 5e that I didn't buy. I still don't have it. I wanted to get the Coffin set. I did not buy that either. To answer your question, Welch goes through all the Gazetteers of Mystara, but the Gazetteers were, when published, had a player's guide and a DM's guide with secrets in the DM's guide. Gotcha. That makes sense. And yeah, if he's going over every detail, well, yeah, that's going to definitely not be something I want my players to see. But knowing like little story stuff here and there, it doesn't bother me if my players know it. The streaming gods are displeased. Yeah, I think YouTube has had some issues tonight because I was watching another stream earlier. I watched the D&D live stream, the tail end of it. And again, not the D&D live stream, but other streams I was watching earlier while trying to, because I was actually, I was not planning on doing this stream tonight. I was actually going to do a stream about world building as I worked on my world map in Incarnate, because I've been working on trying to get my world finished map-wise and then do some other stuff. And so I was just planning on writing and doing some mapping, possibly streaming it if there was enough interest. But yeah, it didn't. I saw this at like 7:30, which was about an hour before I was even thinking of going live, and I was writing, and I was like, oh, I gotta do a video on this. Like, I just felt it was too big not to. And the thing about a possible 6th edition, the thing that was weird, is I would think that I would be really excited about it. Kind of how I was about a new Palladium edition earlier this week. And the idea of a new D&D edition did not excite me. It was interesting, and I felt like it needed to be talked about. And there's things I've wanted to see changed, but none of it. None of it. Sorry, my wife texted me. But yeah, none of it really is like, oh my gosh, I need to get this. I could play 5e the way it is and be happy with it. It might be one of those things that this is just my edition 5 years from now, and the newest one is not. I don't know. All the videos I've watched been buffering a lot lately. Oh, that's no good. Tim says, NASA, we have an issue. Game Master Toolbox. I got the Rifts Ultimate Edition when it first came out. It was in my 2nd year living here. Man, I bought it at a comic book store that is no longer here. Yeah, most aren't, man. We've seen, like, over by me, there's a few. But yeah. Yeah, I think that was a limited edition book, if I remember correctly. Not this one, not the one I have. They had a foil version that was limited edition, but this one is not limited edition. In fact, this one, what printing is this? Let's see if it even says. Sometimes they do. This is the 2nd printing from January 2007. First printing of the Rifts Ultimate Edition was August 2005. So there you go. There you go. Very interesting. Leather Guru, funny you comment about anti-woke people. Are you saying you're pushing woke politics in gaming? There should be no outside BS in gaming. I am more in the woke crowd, yes. But at the same time, I don't want anyone pushing either side on me. But I will just not support companies that I think are anti-woke. I'd rather not hear their take if they have a problem with it. That's where I stand on it. But I don't care what anyone in here does. If you choose to buy old school games or new school games, or if you choose to support, companies that are on either side, that's your choice. Lady Leaf Underhill. Peter wants us to know nothing, and I do. Too busy learning 5e. Peter says, Underhill, Juce's character in that campaign was the 2 hit point fighter tank of their party that I talk about often. That is true, except he was not much of a tank. He was a shoot with a bow, stay far away, even though I had good armor. Maybe it's DND5e Advanced Edition. Game Master Toolbox says, yeah, I think Special Edition came out, but I got the standard hardcover. Nathan says, must have mixed those up. Tim says, I've got one comic store that has been holding out over 40 years now. Roll Stats says, he may have 2 hit points, but they are a strong 2 hit points. That is true. Nathan says, yeah, a whole bunch where I live aren't here anymore. Shortly after I moved back. So, yeah, no, I love it. Absolutely love it. LBJ is a great character. Great character. In fact, I have him right here. Or not LBJ. Sorry, that is Peter's character. Mine is Sloppy Sherman Woods. Fighter. 2 hit points. Armor class 1. My strength is 10. My intelligence is 14. My wisdom is 13. Dexterity 16. Constitution 7. So it's a -1 mod there. And charisma is 8. Another -1 mod. Let's see. To hit armor class 0 is a 19. What is it? I'm wearing I think I got full plate armor. I gotta take the sheet out. This character means a lot because it's still on the clipboard next to where I keep the book. Plate mail, AC 3. Armor load 500 ENC. Equipment load 340 ENC. We're sitting at 1,807 XP. I have a short bow, a short sword, a bastard sword, and a mace. Got 2 silver-tipped arrows. And that about sums it up. I think I was ready to make a backup character, too, because I wrote down potential names. Because I thought he was going to die. So I came up with potential names as well. I love it. All right, what is... maybe it's D&D5e Advanced. That's what I think they're going to do. I honestly think they're going to do that. Because I think they're going to be worried about alienating their current fan base. That it's just too big. I don't even think there's a reason to make a new edition right now. I don't know. But I don't see their sales trends. I don't see, maybe creatively they've hit a wall. I have no idea. Yeah, I think Special Edition came out, but I got the standard cover. Yeah, the Special Edition that they came out probably around the same time. Typically, they limit it to about 100 runs. They've done it with Heroes Unlimited, Palladium Fantasy. Heroes Unlimited was like a bright blue book with like a turquoise foil. They did it with Palladium Fantasy, which obviously was a green book. I should say obviously, like you guys would know. But then Riffs was a black book with silver, I think. I don't know if they did a black with gold. But yeah, they've done a couple foil editions of those that were limited runs. And they usually try to charge $100 for it too, I think. Or no, they charge like $60 and then it goes up to $100 after a little bit, I think. Tim says, I've got one comic store that has been holding out over 40 years now. That's sweet. I love comic book stores. Nathan says, a whole bunch where I live aren't here anymore shortly after I moved back. Game Master Toolbox says, Miracle, I can still see the stream. Hey, I can still see the stream too, just not in my YouTube window over here where it says an error occurred. Please try again later. It still says it. Almost qualifies for what Gary Gygax called hopeless characters. Yeah, pretty much. Gamers Toolbox, I'm rendering something right now. Peter says, my current favorite character I'm playing in 5e is Brother Thaddeus, an arcane trickster rogue pretending to be a cleric. Has a halfling potion hidden in his sleeve to heal people, but pretends to be the super righteous cleric, meanwhile robbing everything not bolted down. So I like it when the players don't know the other players' classes. And doing stuff like that is awesome. Like having your own little secrets about your character and role-playing a certain way. Mwah, beautiful. Like making a dex rogue and pretending you're a dex-based fighter or something like that totally works. That's kind of how I envisioned my guy, Sloppy Sherman Woods. I think I said he grew up in like a town that was in the woods, and that's how he kind of got his bow. I think that was what I kind of came up with for his little backstory. His brother was an adventurer who died. I think his father died, if I remember right. I don't know. I gave it's been a long time, but I gave a little write-up to Roll Stats a while back. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, I love it. I like the idea of... So one, I don't like when people just assume like clerics are going to be healers. And so again, like maybe you make a cleric, but you pretend you're a fighter or something else is cool. I didn't mind Paula's character dying. However, your monologue after the fact about it was, again, that was great. I loved your write-up of it. Honestly, Bill, you should write short stories. You should. Or chapter books. Because I think you would be an excellent author. Followed by the discussion about her having a nose. Does Peter always play characters like that? I feel like Pike is not far off from LBJ. Peter claimed he was going to bed, but evidently he's been putting Irimi in a party dress just because I asked whether she'd be wearing that first Hero Forge outfit. Rollstat says, speaking as an old school DM, we do care about your characters. We don't relish in their death. I do. No, I don't think I relish in player characters' deaths, but sometimes I enjoy character deaths. Even as a player alongside them, I sometimes like character deaths. Like, so if, for example, say somebody has been role-playing the hell out of their character and you've gotten to know their character, a meaningful death and having emotion associated with it is amazing. It's fantastic, and I think it has its place in the game. I love it. Not because I want to see them die, but because it brings out a response. Just like watching a TV and a character dies, like TV show. You know, if they've done a good job, you actually care. But also, if it feels like a character has already kind of had their character arc, like they've already grown, they've already experienced a bunch of things, and from the outside, you don't see how they could even really progress in the sense of how things have been in the game. Like, of course, things can always change. You can always grow them in a different way, or they could still have something tragic happen or trauma or whatever and go a different trajectory and freshen it up. But every now and then, like a character death, because maybe a character grows stale after time, also doesn't bother me. Rollstat says, I'm currently writing System Agnostic Adventures, the first of which is 99% done. You're going to review it, Juice. Of course I'll review it. 100%. You know I will. Nathan says, character deaths are part of the story and development. Yeah, I agree. And the way that can impact other characters can be huge. But like, the whole reason we watch TV shows and movies is to get emotionally invested. And when a character dies, if they have played their character well, and you care about that character and they die, that should elicit some kind of a response. And if not, out of you as the player, as a character that you're playing, can you get some kind of emotional response? You know what I mean? Like, is Sloppy Sherman Woods upset about her death? I believe he was. But the new character who joined us was awesome, way cooler, with black armor. Like, just being real here. A PC death can help grow a tree as fertilizer, too. Exactly. And that is the whole reason we play this game, is to grow trees as fertilizer. Or to cut them down to make character sheets, one or the other. One or the other. I love it. Oh, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not O'Neill Flynn. But do people serve as fertilizer for a tree in a fictional world? Does it work that way? How does science actually work that way in these fantasy worlds? Do we know? Maybe the science of these worlds is completely different and it doesn't actually help the tree grow. I don't know. I'm just being a pain in the ass now. So, anyways. Is anybody here actually excited about a new D&D edition? Anybody? I feel like I should be. I'm not. I'm not even excited if it's an advanced version, really, unless it does the things the way I hope. But I don't think it's going to. Although, Tasha's did offer switching up the races, but even that didn't do it how I wanted it. It just made everything the same. That's not what I wanted at all. Like, I want a pool of dwarven things you could choose from the dwarf. I want a pool of human traits that you can choose from being a human. You know? Give me a couple choices. But yeah, I'm not excited. I wish I was. I'm not. But Palladium! Oh boy! And they didn't even announce a new edition. They just said all things are on the table. Yeah. Yeah, see, nobody's excited about a new D&D edition. Not in my sphere. Nathan says like 25%. Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, if I had to put a percentage on it, I'm probably less than that. I feel like I'm probably not going to adapt to a new edition. I'm not going to make the move. I'll try it. I might get the core books, but I don't think it's going to be an all-in thing for me. It kind of bums me out, to be honest. It's kind of sad for me. I like what I have now. You know? Although I thought Pathfinder 2nd Edition was going to be an edition that pulled me away from 5e, and it didn't. It just pushed me right back to 5e. I like Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I want to play it as a player, but I don't want to run it. That's the hardest part for me. I think I need to play it a few more times before really running. Although I could run it. I think I could run it, and I still had fun when I did run it. I just started playing and bought a bunch of 5e books, but I do like Tasha's. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think Tasha's is a fine book. I think it makes things a little more generic from a mechanics standpoint, but, you know, it's whatever. There were things in that book I liked. Blind fighting, for example. I like that. And how it works, you know, mechanically. I think there's even some brawler things for a fighter that are kind of cool. Like for the hand, like there's a brawler fighting style or something for fighter. I like it when a company doesn't completely rework their systems and just expand upon it or fix issues the older books had in them. I don't like how Palladium did it at all. I think Palladium needed a whole revamp, for example. And they didn't. I think they went 20% as far as they should have. I think there was a whole chunk that they just didn't. I think they were afraid of losing fans, but in the way they did it, I think they held on to a lot of fans, but they didn't make new fans. You know, and I think when you're going into a new edition, while you want to appease old fans, you want to keep as many of them as possible. Your real target is to bring in fresh blood, fresh meat, I think. You know? your old school fans can play the old editions. There's nothing stopping them. Like, I won't even be mad when D&D does come out with a new full-on edition. Okay, it is what it is. I'll just play the old one, you know? But, like, D&D, AD&D to 3.5 or whatever doesn't bother me. I actually think that was a good jump. But at the same time, I'm not really into 3.5. I'd probably rather play AD&D than D&D 3.5. TSR says, I play all kinds of RPGs, but for D&D, it's 1E, BECME, 2E. It's okay to play the same systems for as long as you want. 100% agree. That's why it doesn't bother me, like, that companies make changes to their products at all. Like, I still have the original PHB for 5e, and I still can use that. I have AD&D. I can go play that. I got Rule Cyclopedia. I can play that. You know? Rollstat says, I'm still waiting for a gaming company to create a good Western tabletop RPG. You know what? Note to self. Self-create a Western-based tabletop RPG that doesn't suck out loud. Bill, if you make it, I'll help you playtest it. And if you want help with it, I would not mind helping out at times. What do you think would be a good die resolution mechanic for a Western? A D6? A D6 pool might be awesome. You could even have like Russian roulette rules and just base it off of a 6-shooter with D6s. O'Neill says Castle and Crusades just updates typos and stuff like that. Never rules changes. They're going into an 8th printing. Yeah, but that's just a new printing, or it's not a new edition. I mean, I guess that's kind of what was said above. But that's not... Yeah, I don't know. Deadwood. Is that a Western tabletop RPG? Bill, the only thing I'll say, as long as it has like a simple core game, I'm cool with it. Like, I would play it. Yeah, need an exploding dice system for sure. There you go. Make it a dice pool game. Well, no, don't do dice pools. I'm not even necessarily a huge fan of dice pools. I do like the Fantasy Flight Star Wars, though. That's a fun game. My friend is he's been working on a game for a long time called Rad Wasteland, which is similar in concept to Fantasy Flight Star Wars. I've play tested it. You played it, Roll Stats. But it was like post-apocalyptic Western, kind of. So it wasn't full-on Western. In fact, I think we even had a car, and I was a robot character in that game. Peter says, one DM player in our group who is Texan would love such a game, I think. Are you stereotyping them because they're Texan? Deadwood is Savage Worlds, I believe. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not interested in playing that then. Nathan says, exploding dice systems are fun to play. Some are. I do like that aspect of Savage Worlds. I just wish you didn't have two different sets of damage you're rolling and taking the highest. I don't like that. 2 to 3 D6 dice mechanic. Yeah, that would be good. Oh, a 2D6 mechanic might be cool. That'd be really easy too. Base everything off of like an average difficulty of like 8. That would be really cool. And being able to add D6s to it. I love talking about making up new game systems. If you made an old school Western based off of the spaghetti Westerns, I will buy 2 copies. There you go. You already got your 2 sales right there. Nathan says, I think he's talking about making it sort of like Deadwood. It was more like Fallout than a true Western. Yeah, I agree, Bill. It wasn't Western enough. There were no duels. Like, it would have been cool to like have a standoff and duel. And there were more monsters in it than like dealing with like bandits and stuff like that. TSR fan, that is exactly what I am thinking. The Man with No Name tabletop RPG. There you go. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys hanging out. There's still 17 of you. That's awesome. That's wild. For none of us actually being interested in the new D&D edition, this is a good turnout. I enjoyed this. Love talking about tabletop RPGs. Love talking about mechanics. I might do another chat in just a few days talking about the, again, Palladium Books. I love talking about Palladium Books. Love it. But I don't know. Even tonight, every time I kind of brought it up, I started getting a little excited again, and I had to reel myself back in a little bit. So, and had to convince myself to bring up more D&D stuff. So, once again, the big news was head of D&D, Ray Winninger, was wearing an AD&D shirt and announced a brand new version of the core rulebook coming out for the 50th anniversary in 2024. They were going to do play tests. They were going to make it completely compatible with the current edition, is what they said, which makes me believe it's a new edition, but it could also just be more advanced 5.5e, if you will. So with that, guys, thank you for watching. This was Master the Game. I am Juice. Game on.